So you've come here for the truth. Well, we've got the truth and nothing but the truth. Here are your hosts, Robert A. Bianchi and David J. Bruno.
Welcome to WMTR Radio's Nothing But the Truth with your host Bob Bianchi and Dave Bruno every Saturday, as well as our podcast. But Dave, let's get to it, man. We got, kudos to you, an amazing guest today. Talk about mindset, success. That's what the show's all about. I know everybody thinks, like, a couple of lawyers from Jersey, what are we talking about mindset? But mindset permeates everyone, every day, every part of their lives. What we got?
Yeah, we got Bashar, Katou, and I'll tell you what, this is one of the individuals that I follow and favorite every single one of his posts on Instagram. I mean, he has 2.7 million followers. He is out there teaching everybody how to generate income and start their own businesses, and specifically a 7-figure Amazon FBA seller. He's the founder of BJK University and is on a mission to impact 1 million lives. And I'll tell you what, I enjoy your content so much that I even share this with my wife. And I am really interested in hearing this story of how you got to where you are. And it is exceptional content, and I welcome everybody to follow this man and the mindset messages that come out. Thank you for joining us at Nothing But the Truth, Bashar.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you both for having me. It's you don't get contacted by attorneys every now and then. Usually, it's not for good, right? But to be on a podcast, that definitely was an honor being on this podcast. So thank you.
Of course. So Bashar, you are so prolific in what you do. Like Dave said, you have so many followers. We know there's a reason. We're looking at your story here. But one thing we love talking about is that usually we find common themes with really successful folks like yourself. And part of that is that it always wasn't easy. There was a process that got you where you're going. So can you give us a little understanding of who you are and where you came from and how you got to where you're at?
So, I mean, I'll kind of take us back a little bit. For me, it started when I was probably about 4 or 5 years old. My father was a successful entrepreneur in Iraq. That's where I'm originally from. And he actually owned the second largest factory of clothing in Iraq. And as I was growing up and became, my conscience actually started growing, I realized that I really wanted to be like him. He was very well respected in the community. To me, he was like a mover, a shaker. People came to him for advice or money or both. I always aspired to be like him. He used to travel. He would go to Spain and Germany and Thailand to buy cloth and material for his factory. And so just that whole, not experience, but just what he was all about was very inspiring to me. And then around the age of about 13, the war on Iraq happened in 2003, and we were forced out of there. So prior to that, in 91, he went from a complete, like a multimillionaire to pretty much worth nothing overnight because of the specific restrictions that were set on the Iraqi government. So the Iraqi dinar used to be, 1 dinar used to equal $3 and literally overnight went to $1 to equal 1,200 dinars. Wow. And so he went from, like, again, a multimillionaire to nothing overnight. And that destroyed him. After the Iraqi war in 2003, we pretty much got forced out of the country. We had to flee Iraq in 2006. And at that point, he didn't have any money, but he had properties. And so what happened was that he left all of his properties back home because he couldn't liquidate, he couldn't do anything. And that's when we migrated to America, in fact, to Detroit on 06.
Right. So first of all, that had to be very traumatic, obviously, on the family yourself. How did that change your mindset in terms of when you got to America, what it is that you aspired to do?
It was the first time in my life that I now had the chance to look into the future and be able to dream. Because up until now, especially I mean, I'm 13 in 2003, and imagine living for 3-4 years where you are simply, you don't know if you're going to go to sleep tonight, whether or not you're going to wake up tomorrow morning. You don't know whether or not, a missile being launched or a rocket being launched next to your house, if it's going to fall in your living room or your neighbor's living room, or what's going to happen. And so we lived that kind of life for many years, and we didn't have the I guess the bandwidth to even think of the future, a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So when I came to America, it was the first time in my life that I could actually see that there were opportunities, that there was place for me to create whatever future that I wanted in my life. And to me, that was very freeing. And with that said, I think this is kind of one of the reasons why, like, immigrants, at least from what I know, do very well in this country, especially because where we come from, there are just simply no opportunities. There's no room for you to do anything. And the fact that you can come to this country and do anything that you want, obviously, as long as you follow the law, it's just an incredible thing that I think many people have just become very numb to it. Especially those that were born and raised here, and I know from my race as well. It's a different mentality between those that came as kind of immigrants, to those that say their parents or grandparents migrated to the country 30, 40 years ago, and they were born here. The mentality is completely different. The hunger is completely different. They kind of get accustomed to, this is the normal thing that I'm expecting every single day, where they don't have the mindset or the mentality of, like, these are things that you did not have before, and now I have them. Let me be grateful for what I have, and let me try to make the most out of it.
Wow. So when you get to Detroit and you now have this vision, you have opportunity in front of you, how did you take advantage of that? How did you get to the next step from there?
Well, very first obstacle that I had was I didn't speak English. So this was the very first thing that I had to overcome. Learning English became the kind of a mission of my life. And so I took the first 6 months to learn anything and everything about English that I could put my hands on. So what I would do is I started summer school. I would every day in school, any new word that I didn't know, which at the time were many, I would write in a notebook, and I would grab the definition in Arabic, put it in a sentence. At the end of each week, there was about 300, 400, 500 new words that I had learned, put them all in sentences, and then each week I would go back and review and make sure that I knew exactly what that word meant. So that was my first mission. The second thing was, I was 16 at the time. It was just myself, my mother, and my older brother, and now I had to navigate through, what does it mean to be in this country? What does it mean? Who do I now become? Now I'm a teenager, going to school, getting to meet people, getting to create kind of like a tribe and friends and so on. And so now I had to navigate through kind of, I guess, fitting in, right? At that time, styles of the way that you dress, the way you do your hair, all that stuff was completely different, especially in Detroit and the Middle East, right? And so that was another obstacle. I would get bullied a lot in school. Kids in school would make fun of how my hair was, how I dressed, and so on. So I was navigating through all those things. I started, creating a liking in a girl that I didn't even know how to communicate what I was feeling to her. And so that was kind of another thing. But once I was able to kind of overcome these obstacles, now I realized that, I have the rest of my life ahead of me, and that now I could become whatever I wanted. And around the time, my mom sold me on the idea that if I wanted to become successful in this country, I should go to school, I should get a degree, and I should, for her, it was a doctor. My sister is actually a lawyer, and she wanted a doctor and a lawyer in the house so she can brag to her sisters and her friends. But, after going to school for a few years, I just realized that it wasn't for me, and that my true dream was becoming an entrepreneur, because I had aspired to do so since I was a little kid. And And that kind of started around 19, 20 years old, and that brought a whole set of obstacles itself.
Did you go to college? Did you have a certain period of time in college?
Yeah, so I actually graduated from high school a semester early so I can start college, so that way I could do my prerequisites and go to medical school. But there was a period of time where I thought that I was that two things, and this comes to labeling, and we can talk about that if you guys want. But I see a lot of people labeling themselves, putting specific labels on themselves, such as I'm a procrastinator, such as I'm lazy, such as I am unfocused, because those were all things that I started experiencing. I would be sitting in a library with a book open, trying to study for an exam that I should have studied for a month ago. The exam is tomorrow. A fly would go by a mile away, and I would turn around, and I just could not find myself to focus. Over the years, what I realized is that I wasn't unfocused, I wasn't a procrastinator, I was not lazy, I was just uninspired. The thing that I was doing was not inspiring me, was not creating enough leverage in my life so that I can create change. And that's the thing that I see a lot of people nowadays struggle with, and then they get labeled, whether if it's by a professional, whether if it's by their parents, whether if that by their peers. And then now they have this label on themselves, and all it is, it's shackles around you that are holding you back from the next thing in your life, from your max potential, right? Because now you're walking around thinking that you're this thing, because all of your life, society has been labeling you that thing, and now you are missing out on opportunities because every time you see an opportunity, that label comes into place and you can't move forward.
Wow, that's really an amazing insight. All right, guys, we're going to have to take a break. We're definitely going to pick up on the other end, because you can obviously see we're going to get to speaking to how his successes came about. Obviously, a very impressive background. Thank you so much. We'll be back. WMTR Radio's Nothing But the Truth.
At the Bianchi Law Group, our team of former prosecutors and certified criminal trial attorneys specialize in criminal defense and domestic violence cases. When you need a law firm with courage, compassion, and the commitment to fight for you, call the Bianchi Law Group today.
Welcome back to WMTR Radio's Nothing But the Truth with Bob Bianchi, Dave Bruno. Bashar, let's pick up on that last point. You talked about labeling. I really think that is an amazing insight. Everything in your background, but I have two real quick questions for you. The first is, when you were receiving that level of bullying, you called it, or even potentially discrimination, there are some people that can go down a rabbit hole of despair and become victims, and there are those who can deal with it and become victors, as they say. How did you corner all of that? Because you're dealing with everything here. You have to learn a new language, a new tribe of friends, as you put it, and girls, and communicating your feelings. How did you not go into despair?
And I did. And, I've realized that I've done so over the course of my life whenever tough situations presented themselves. And I think that's just being human. But then it's I think you have to just think about, what does the other side look like? If you're able to see all the way through, you have to ask yourself, because at the time I realized that I wasn't the only person experiencing those challenges, right? There were other people that have come and gone before me that have experienced the same thing, and people after me that will experience similar things. But there were other people that have experienced similar things or worse things and been able to make it through. So it's like, well, what's the difference between me and them? And then as I developed, I just became more clear that it's really all psychology, right? And so at the end of the day, you just have to make the decision for yourself. Do I continue through this victim, kind of victimhood, and where does that really take me? Or do I say, what is this situation teaching me? What could I learn from the situation, and how could I grow? In fact, every month I write kind of a quote on my whiteboard that I live by for the whole month. And last month it was, thank you, life, for being difficult, because it is through difficulties that we learn and grow. And now I actually get excited every time a new crisis presents itself in my life. And the bigger the crisis, the more excited I get, because to me, although I'm feeling like shit during the crisis, but I know that on the other side, I'm going to grow a ton as a person.
And I just want to one last follow up, and I know Dave's. We definitely have to have him back if he's willing to. But let's go to that labeling, because you said something that was really interesting to me. I feel in my own life and looking at other people that sometimes we put those shackles of labeling ourselves a certain something because maybe we're uninspired or whatever the reason may be. So you're really saying there that you had to get past the labels that other people placed on you, that you accepted yourself. Is that fair to say, or was it labels you just created on your own?
I'm assuming you guys, well, actually, let me not assume. Do you guys know Tony Robbins?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I follow him religiously, especially over the last 6 months. And there is something that he says. He says, we don't experience life, we experience the meaning that we put to life, or our life experiences, right? So it's not you're not experiencing the events. Two people can look at the same exact situation, and one person will be thinking, holy shit, my life is over. The other person could say, holy shit, this is awesome, I'm starting brand new, look at all these opportunities, right? And so it's about the meaning that you're adding to anything, right? People could say that you're lazy, and then you could take that to heart and then say, yes, I am lazy. Anything that I do in my life, you're going to keep repeating the story or the meaning of I'm lazy, I can't accomplish it. Or you could just simply say, well, sure, maybe I'm lazy. Why is that? What's the meaning here? What am I trying? What can I learn from this? Well, for me personally, it was that I just simply was uninspired, right? Yeah. And that was the meaning that I got out of it. Now, I didn't come to that meaning right there and then. But it took me challenging the status quo. It took me challenging the meaning that society was placing on me to see the other side of it. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people fail to do that, to go through pain, navigate through pain, rather than just saying, nope, I can't do it anymore, and then just kind of throw the flag and sit.
Wow. Yeah, so you were uninspired, but I would assume that you became inspired. Right? The purpose. And we'll get to, I think we're speaking the same language here, purpose driven. What's the purpose that pushes you over the edge from uninspired to inspired?
Yeah, you see, I get this question a lot. People ask me, hey, what's the best business advice you have? And usually people are looking for like something tactical. They think I'm going to say, well, set up your LLC or do this thing and then take this other step. But then I come back with something where the first maybe 5-10 minutes they look at me like I'm crazy, and then I think they kind of understand after. I always say be clear on your why. Okay. The more clear you are on your why, and the bigger your why is, the more inspired or inspiration you will find. Obstacles will happen all the time. Turbulences will happen all the time. I don't care if you're a lawyer, if you're running a podcast, if you're starting an Amazon business, if you're Jeff Bezos. Obstacles will happen. The thing that will keep you going through obstacles and come out through the other side, it's your why. That's the thing that you're going to be thinking about all the time. So for me, it was being clear on my why, right? When I first came to America, it was, I want to take care of my mom. I still had a family back home that all of us as a family wanted to bring back to, or bring to America. So it was making sure those happen. Several years later, after I lost over $500,000 in my restaurant business, it was getting clear of the $150K debt that I left myself with, gaining the respect back of my dad, retiring my parents. 2019, 2020, after I had made a few $1 million and realized that, okay, I've done all these things. Money was a driver for a while. Now what? Now it became, how do I leave the world a better place, which is my personal vision. And so that became my why. And now that this why is just so large that I wake up every single day, regardless, even if the business is crashing and burning, I'm excited because I know this is just a kind of a stepping stone in the whole journey.
Yeah, that's amazing. So listen, I know that you made money. I know that you had a problem in your business, and then ultimately you overcame that. Can you talk to us a little bit about that experience and what your mindset was in getting over those difficulties and now looking at them as positive things?
So while going through any experience, any difficulty in business or in life, it's always difficult. You know, it's always you just kind of never know whether or not you can make it, you know. And until now, 6 months ago, I found myself on the ground at a supermarket here having a seizure for the first time in my life. And for the following 2-3 months, I experienced anxiety like I've never experienced in my life, panic attacks, paralyzed, couldn't even move, couldn't even go anywhere or do anything. And out of that, it put me into this trajectory of self-development that I have never even thought of. I thought I had been, you know, in this self-development journey for the last 5, 7, 8 years, but the last 6 months I've probably been developed more as a human than I have in the last decade, right? Because there was leverage created in my life. And this is why you see these like comeback stories. Oftentimes it's, you know, the hero is like, they have their backs against the wall and it's like, you know, they hit rock bottom and then they came out through the other side because there was leverage created. So every time what I've realized is that the bigger leverage is created in my life, I've always been able to come out through the, you know, to the other side and really do something much bigger and much larger than I had ever thought of. And so now I'm just thinking about how do I create that leverage without life creating that leverage in my life, right? Without life kind of waking me up to the fact that I need to really create change and slapping me in the face. How could I create that leverage? So whenever an obstacle happens, it means that there is something new that you've never experienced before, and that in order for you to, what I was saying is that in order for you to go through an obstacle, whatever the obstacle is happening in your life, the bigger the obstacle, the bigger the person that you have to become in order for you to tackle the obstacle, right, or to tackle the opponent, in other words. And so for me, it's always a growth opportunity for me every time there's an obstacle, just because it means that I need to become a bigger, more developed person, because usually problems only mean that you are growing. If you are having the same problems, it only means that you're not growing, and new problems are, for me, are always good, you know?
Okay, Bashar, if you could tell us what you're doing now, how people can find you, and what's your now why?
So now why is leave the world a better place, and part of this I am accomplishing through BJK University, which it's got a mission impact 1 million lives at a time. And what we do is we help people through education. We're trying to disrupt the education system by providing people the skill they can turn into income within 90 days or less. So we help them start online businesses. Currently focuses on Amazon FBA. But in the future, we'll be providing more opportunities and more skills. So if anyone watching, they want to follow me or kind of see the journey, they can just go to Instagram and look up Bashar JK2. And just make sure it's the one with a 2.7, 2.8 million followers, because there's like 20 other people trying to be me and scam people. So
a lot of cheap imitations out there. Bashar, we really appreciate it. I'd love to have you back, because you think in the space that we do, in a heart space and a mind space, but unfortunately it's all the time that we have right now. This is WMTR Radio's Nothing But the Truth every Saturday. And Dave, you can talk about the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're on the radio right now on Saturday, but on Wednesday, producer Jerry drops the bombs, not only in the podcast on Spotify and Google Podcasts and iTunes, but also the web series we're recording right now with Bashar through our cameras. So we dropped the video, we dropped the podcast, and everything you could find on nothingbutthetruthpodcast.com. This one and all the rest of our guests. Bashar, it's been a pleasure. I enjoy your content, and I look forward to continuing to watch you. And thank you for coming on Nothing But the Truth. Take care.
Appreciate you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Bianchi Law Group, a team of former prosecutors and certified criminal trial attorneys.
But here's the thing. He put himself in a box when he said...
Relied on by CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Law and Crime, and news leaders across the country for our criminal defense expertise.
In a search warrant, you have to have probable cause that a crime's been committed and there's evidence in a particular place.
When you need a law firm with courage, compassion, and the commitment to fight for you, call the Bianchi Law Group today.